Well, there was a lot of news made last year in the Normandy and Riverview school districts when they were so unaccredited and performing so poorly that the state allowed students from those districts to transfer to other school districts in the area. How's that been working out, particularly for the bottom line of the money that was supposed to flow with those students? Elisa Crouch from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch has been covering this story and writing about it in the last couple of days and joins me now here on the Big 550 KTRS. Hi, Elisa. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm great.
So let's start with the money. Has it been going from Normandy and Riverview Gardens to the districts? And if so, what have those districts been doing with it?
Yeah, the money's been going. The bills are being paid, and the districts, they're doing kind of a wide array of things. Some districts aren't spending it at all. It's just accumulating in their bank accounts. There are some districts like Francis Howell, Pattonville, Clayton, who have hired some additional support staff to help the students who need it the most. There are a couple other districts, Kirkwood and Melville, that have spent the money on after-school activity buses so the kids could participate in sports or student council or things after school.
Has this caused overcrowding in these schools, which was one of the problems people were worried about?
No, not at all. So the schools didn't have to take all the kids that had applied. And if you had, for instance, an influx of third graders who wanted into a certain elementary school, if there were only 5 seats available at that elementary school, that school could have the liberty to say, we're just going to take five students. And so, no, there hasn't been overcrowding at all.
So there was a cap on class sizes, and in most cases, the schools have lived by that.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Right. So, that eliminated the need for more classroom space, additional teachers.
We're only a little more than halfway through this school year. Do they have any idea about what's going to happen for the 2014 fall semester?
I think everyone's focus is on just getting through this school year, and so the thought of even thinking about next fall is, it just seems so distant. In terms of the transfers, if things stay in place, we may not get through the end of the school year in Normandy. If the transfer law is unchanged, then transfers will continue out of Riverview Gardens. There may no longer be a Normandy school district. And next fall, we could be looking at, transfers continuing out of Riverview, but potentially that district becoming bankrupt before the end of the school year next year.
And so what happens to the rest of the kids who are left in Normandy and Riverview?
That's up to the State Board of Education. So according to state statute, the State Board would reassign those students to other schools and other districts. So potentially we could be looking at, 3,000 children from Normandy being dispersed throughout the area sometime this spring. There's also been some talk about maybe other school districts coming in and taking over buildings within the Normandy school system. So and this is just hypothetical. No one's talking about, any one particular school district doing this. But, say you could have a situation like Parkway running one building, Rittner running a building, to avoid, just disrupting those kids and suddenly trying to figure out over a weekend where those kids are going to go.
The thinking is that it's better to keep them in their home district than bus them all the way across town?
Well, that's those are some of the discussions that are being had right now. I mean, I'm not sure how realistic any of it is. I'm sure they'll try to figure out what is the easiest thing for everyone. But that's just one idea that's being tossed around.
I want to go back to the money for just a second. How much money is being spent per student moving out of Normandy and Riverview?
It depends on the district they're going to. So on the low end, Melville has the lowest tuition of any of the receiving districts, and it's somewhere around the neighborhood of $7,500 per student. Clayton is at the high end, and so they have a 3-tiered tuition rate, but they have I think it's their high school. They charged about $20,000 per student. So it really depends on where the students are going.
So we're talking about a lot of money that's moving around with hundreds and hundreds of kids. What's the total amount? Do you have any idea?
What's that?
Right. What's the total amount of money that's outflowing from Normandy and Riverview Gardens for these kids?
Well, the projection is that by the end of the school year, we're looking at a potential outflow of about $30 million. collectively from Normandy and Riverview Gardens. Now here's the thing: a lot of there are students who have returned to Normandy and Riverview, so their tuition is no longer being paid by those districts.
Wait a second. Whoa. Why would the kids return?
Well, I mean, so some of them are having to wake up really super early in the morning to catch buses. Others have parents who have to get them to school every day, and transportation is a hardship for them. And so, I've also heard that some high school students, they miss their friends. They, just the social adjustment to a new place, dozens of miles from their home hasn't been easy. There are transfer students who love their new schools, and there are others that it just hasn't quite worked out for a number of reasons.
And they could get tossed around even more if Normandy goes completely bankrupt and closes, and the kids get moved from one district to another yet again.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the first point we talked about, which is that the school districts that have received these kids and their portion of that $30 million in revenue have not necessarily been using it to hire new staff. Is that because they've been able to absorb the kids into existing classrooms without having to make new classes for all of these kids?
Yeah. So right, they have been able to absorb the students. They also say that for students who are academically behind, they already have the support staff in place to help those kids improve. And so the other part of this too is a lot of these districts are pretty hesitant to extend contracts, long-term contracts to staff, not really knowing if the money at any given point in time could just stop.
Right.
And so, that's the other elephant in the room there. No one knows if Normandy is going to go bankrupt at this point. And when they do, they're certainly going to have to stop paying their bills because they can't afford to. So at some point this spring, it's conceivable that at least one of these two districts won't be able to pay its tuition bills anymore. And so that prospect has had some superintendents and school boards a little bit nervous about hiring the additional staff. Now, on the flip side of that, they are getting millions of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how many students they have. And so with that, some people say with that comes responsibility. And since the money is flowing into the districts because of the kids, then perhaps it should be spent to the benefit of those children.
Is this going on elsewhere in Missouri?
It's not yet. It will probably be starting in Kansas City this fall if the transfer law doesn't change. Kansas City Public Schools is also unaccredited, but they had their own lawsuit that delayed, compliance with the law. And so now that lawsuit has been resolved, they're looking at a transfer situation starting this fall.
And what about the city of St. Louis? Are they still provisional?
They're still provisional. So at this point, the law does not apply to them in terms of them being an unaccredited school district. They actually have a handful of students who have transferred into their schools from Normandy and Riverview, actually.
It's an amazing ongoing story. Elisa Crouch has been writing about it in the last couple of days of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and has been all over it since the beginning. I appreciate you joining me here today, Elisa. Thanks so much.
It's great talking to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. It's 8:59. Paul Harris here for McGraw in the Morning. We'll take a break for the news here at the top of the hour. Then I will be joined by television and acting legend Ed Asner.